Oh no, actually, there were neat things about the game for sure. But there's a slew of them. I don't think like one of the interesting things as I look at it is I really liked Harvest Moon and that kind of games, and so seeing Stardew Valley get made, which is basically that's a Harvest Moon clone, is a slightly strong word, but it's
Yeah.
pretty damn similar. The But because there weren't a lot of Harvest Moon type games on the PC, it really, I think part of the reason why it sold so well is that it hit a niche where it's like if you've grown up on the DS or whatever, but now you're on the PC, you want to play that kind of game, that's your option. And so it makes me wonder why more Pokemon-like games haven't been done, since those were only largely, on the Nintendo that you could ever get to those. Where's the modern PC equivalents of that, or Zelda for that matter? The twin sticky kind of RPGs, or even like doing old school RPGs that aren't necessarily in as full world as like the Skyrims, the Ultima era kind of RPGs. I think there's a lot of room to recapture some of the cool angles of those as well. It's funny though, because I mean, you can look. Obviously, it's been mined. If you look at a Diablo, I mean, that's NetHack. Is a lot of the core elements of Diablo then done in real time and then done in like modern graphics in a way that pure geeks like perhaps myself love that game and played it for hundreds and thousands of hours. You knew that people would like that kind of gameplay, but bring that to a broader audience was smart. Blizzard's been so good at that. Look at EverQuest had 500,000
Yeah.
subs, and so there's obviously a market for it, but it had flaws. And I say this having competed with it. We had like number 2 game, I think, behind EverQuest at the time. But when I say flaws, even people on the dev team, it didn't have a quit button. You had to type /camp to quit out of the game, and no help text anywhere told you to type /camp. So literally, you would log in the game,
Yo.
and there's no button to quit anywhere. You have to figure out somehow by talking to someone else to type /camp. That's kind of low-hanging fruit on making the UI better. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like there weren't things that could have been improved in that. As fun as it was, and as much as I played it, and Blizzard has always done such a good job of taking those kind of older style of games and then polishing off the rough edges, capturing a lot of the soul of it, and then bringing it forward. And so, but I also think there's stuff like NetHack and those kinds of older games that deserve to get remade too. Great question. I mean, the what geeks you up more than doing that kind of stuff, and then figuring out, hey, what would that now look like in this era? Would it still be cool, or would it not? It's a very interesting experiment.
That brings up a good question, because my friend Abby, our Irish Hawks, asks about the Final Fantasy VII remake, and how do you feel about the game no longer being turn-based? Like the original.
Well, I mean, Final Fantasy VII is one of the best RPGs of like all time. How
Yeah.
fundamental is turn-based to that or not? What's your opinion on that?
Personally, I love
Yeah.
turn-based. I recently played Lightning's Return, and I hated it. The whole time based where you had to fight against like a timed clock before you beat the game, that drove me insane, because I hated that wait that you had to do it now. You couldn't wait. You just had to rush
Yeah,
and get
being
through
able to
the game.
think and there's a couple of axes you can look at games on in terms of how actiony they are versus how strategic they are, and like there's a band of games. There's a chart that's been on Reddit or some of the other social media type sites mapping games out along those, and different people have opinions where they fall on that. I do like a mix, but I hate feeling rushed in a game. It's something that is like if you look at modern XCOM, the fact that there's kind of a doomsday timer where things are going to get tough and crush you unless you stay on top of the curve. In a way, it's good. It adds tension. In a way, it's bad where you kind of want to just like world build a stuff or go explore. It tends to block you out from doing that kind of stuff. And so that's not quite the same thing as like turn-based versus action, but it's something I've been kind of musing on is being able to do stuff at your own pace and only occasionally being knocked out of your comfort zone is kind of nice. Because being shoved, left to my own devices in RPG, I'm the kind of person who ends with a backpack with like 10,000 healing potions and 12,000 like and you never use
Yeah,
any of them
yeah,
because like there's gonna be some tough fight later where you need them, and
yeah.
like getting my butt kicked enough where I'm kind of forced to get out of that mode, or to me that says there should be a design where those things age or something like that, so you're incented to use them.
That reminds me of an old I think it was Super
Mm.
Nintendo or a PlayStation One game. Wild Worms. One of my favorite
Oh, what was the name of it?
RPGs.
Oh, I
Wild
don't know that one.
Worms.
Hmm.
It was great. I loved it. It was turn based, but the difficulty was just like you had all those potions, and you really had to use them. You just couldn't
Yeah.
sit on them. You really had to use them.
Now I
So I
like that
like
about the
being
Dark Souls
pushed.
kind of mechanism too, where it's like you end up having to use that, and you're limited in a fashion where you're better off using them than storing them. You know what I mean? Like in your normal RPG, you're always better off saving them if you can survive the current thing because maybe there'll be something later. And so for people with min-maxy little brains like mine, then I end up never wanting to use anything like ever. And that kind of takes away the fun of it. So, and strictly on the action versus turn-based, I think my preference is probably to leave that kind of thing turn-based. Like I didn't like the XCOM series in some of the middle games before the remake where they had action modes. Like I preferred having the tactics be interesting enough to lure you into doing that in a turn-based kind of fashion. Um, Conversely, though, I think Diablo is more fun being it got away from the roguelikes by being actiony. I don't think it hurt it that much in my mind. I
See, I never personally ever played
Oh
Diablo.
really?
I never played a
Hmm.
Diablo game because I don't personally like that sky
Yeah.
view. I don't really care for
Yep.
that. So that's
Oh
why I
man,
never
there's a
played
lot of
it.
RPGs then with that isometric kind of view that are.
Yeah, like Never Ending
Yep.
Nights and
Yeah, all
a
those
few of
gold box
those.
games back in the day, and
Yeah.
yeah, I'm torn on that. It's
Um.
awkward. Like in the era of 3D, I want to lower my damn camera to wherever I want and see stuff. But
Yeah, I want to
yeah,
see everything, not just above. Um. Wizzy Axe. Have you ever played? Mr. Question. Black and White.
yeah,
Give me
yeah.
this.
The so that was a Lionhead, if I remember. Wasn't it Peter Molyneux's group?
I've never played it, so
Yeah, no,
I don't even
no.
know what it is.
If I remember correctly, that's like the God game that Molyneux's group did. Let me double check, make sure I'm not a complete idiot about it. The uh, I was crunching during it, so I didn't play it a ton, but there's a common theme there about certain things where I have exhaustive knowledge of areas where I played. Yeah, that's exactly right. So it's Lionhead game, the Peter Molyneux's group, and Lionhead just got dismantled, if I remember correctly, like in the last month or so. With that. I liked it because I liked that kind of like God control game where like Dungeon Keeper was kind of a similar vibe to it, where you get to run your little peeps and have them do stuff for you. I find that to be a compelling kind of gameplay. And they did that in a way that really hadn't been done at the time. It was kind of a precursor to maybe like Spore and that sort of stuff. Well, Spore went in its own crazy direction too. So personally, I enjoyed it. I didn't play it super deeply, so I have a ton of opinion on it. I always liked what Peter's guys did, though. He's just a super fun guy to hang out with and talk to. They're located in England, and we were talking to them right after Black and White came out. Actually, we talked to them because they were considering doing online games at the time. Although I don't know that they ever did, and we were talking to him about that. The I've liked what his team has done too because they haven't been scared of doing kind of interesting and different stuff. And so often, especially in big budget stuff, you're scared to break new ground, like because the guys who control the money often think, "Oh, the thing to do, the pitch." I already talked about how to pitch to gamers. It's like, hey, do what you did when you're young. If you're pitching to bean counters, you're like, take big AAA game A, and then it's just like that plus AAA game B, And so then it's going to be twice as big as both of those. We're going to do like Grand Theft Auto because that's huge, and then like the Kardashians game because that's ginormous. And then we're going to combine that, and now we're going to have like Kardashian Theft Auto Online, and it'll be like bigger than anything. And the and bean counters love that stuff. And so, but what that means is that a large number of the stuff you see get funded for any kind of money tends to be in pretty safe spaces. It tends to be an incremental improvement on game X over here, or it tends to be a remake. Very rarely is it brand new bold stuff. The and the indie scene is more capable of doing that kind of thing, but you're also limited to what you can do with a relatively small amount of money because you're risking your time, which is valuable. Really, at the end of the day, it's kind of all you got between you and the big blackness at the end of it is your time, and how you spend it's pretty important. But conversely, all you got to do is convince one person of that yourself, as opposed to a horde of production folks and bean counters and the team you're working with and all that sort of thing. And so it's part of the reason. So Peter was always kind of fearless, I would argue, in terms of the kind of games he made. Sid Meier to an extent too, in part because I think his skill is so good that he can kind of take any concept and do it in an interesting fashion. Forgive me, by the way, for not reading the Twitch comments directly all the time too. My ability to.
It's hard to keep up tonight.
What's that?
There's a lot of chatter here, so it's hard for me to keep up with all the questions because they don't usually talk this much. But Wizzy actually asked if you thought there would be a sequel to Black and White.
So Black and White 2 came out, I know. But because Lionhead went away, I would imagine that's probably not something that can really be done at this point. Or it'd have to be like a fan reimagining or a remake. I may not be, I don't have a super exhaustive knowledge, but that's my understanding of it. So unfortunately, a sequel probably isn't going to be done at this point. And Black and White 3 probably isn't going to be done, unless again fans, remake it. But it's funny because even you'll see really dead games, and then people will pursue it, try to make it as fans, and then the publisher, whoever owns the IP, to kind of defend their property, will go and shut it down. And personally, I think that's a little, bullshit most of the time. Like, if the game's not being made, let people go and enjoy it. I remember when we were doing, I was looking at, when I was at Origin, at EA, doing Ultima Online 2, we were talking about new potential projects, and I was like, oh man, I'd love to, remake Auto Duel, and let me go take a look, let me go dig that up. And so I went and I looked to go see if I could find it online anywhere, and it wasn't available anywhere anymore. It wasn't for sale anymore. And then I'm like, well, to get a copy of it, I guess the only thing I could really do would be pirate it, but I don't want to pirate it because boy, that'd be BS if I get caught pirating a game I'm in the industry. And I realized, wait, I work at Origin. Auto Duel was made at Origin. In fact, down the hall, there's gold discs up on the wall, which I hunted down in the library, which had the original source code to Auto Duel. I'm like, well, that's pretty damn cool. The game I was considering pirating, it turns out, is actually down frozen in the trophy room. How cool is that? But I think in general, Abandonware, my personal opinion, if anybody ends up, if there's ever IP that I hold where someone wants to, remake something or whatever, I don't know. I let fans do what they want to do with it. If you're not going to go get off your butt and do it yourself, let them enjoy it. My personal opinion.
Disabled talent. Sorry, I got your name wrong. Asks, do you ever think there will be voice-enabled games? Or voice-activated games?
Absolutely. And you see some of that. Part of the reason I say that is when Star Trek Online came out, there's a video that went around where someone had hooked up. It was one of the early voice to text versions to it, so they could play it. So they could play Star Trek Online by sitting there, and they'd be like, "Shields on," and shields go up. They'd be like, "Warp factor 4. Engage," and then the ship would take off, and it was awesome. So he was sitting there controlling all the roles while sitting there effectively in his commander chairs, being Kirk or being Picard, and and it fit that genre so well. I'm like, they should have made the game like that, and that game didn't do super. I really probably should have made the game like that. It was neat because it felt so right for that show. You know what I mean? It's so important sometimes to capture the spirit of whatever you're trying to emulate or capture in a game. And so for the right games, absolutely. Echo, super cool.